What is up, and welcome back to the SuperCoach Experience podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Savage, the coach of the Savage Burbos. We tried to change my name to the Savage Burbos last week, to the Savage Turbos last week, but it didn't let me. Timmy assured that it would work. It didn't let me, so I thought that was a bad omen for trading in Tommy Trbojevic last week, but it wasn't. He came out flying, and I'm sitting in good stead at 31st. I'm joined here by not the 2021 champion. I'm joined by the potential 2024 champion, because you're right on my tail. Mikey, the coach of Trip Jacker Mafia. How are you?
Yeah, good, mate. It's good to finally make it to the office on a normal round. It's hard for me to make it, but luckily my roster lined up today. Thanks for the flattering comment, but I definitely don't see myself as the champion for this year with yourself and Barnesy. Barnesy, you got to mention Barnesy. He's having a hot take.
Christ.
I'm still, where I'm at 272, so managed to go up. Didn't use any trades in the buy round, which is what I wanted to for the buy round. So buy round plays, I just wanted to run with 13, managed to get 1,010. Didn't bring in Tom, didn't bring in Campbell, and still managed to stay with the pack. So I'm happy, and I'm guns blazing for the run home. But I've halved the lead that you had on me, but you still got a pretty steady lead. I think after this round, it's going to be hard to mass jump. It's just going to be from me. But I'm happy to try and get to the top 100. And your big week this week, and anything can happen. But
You do say after this week it's going to be hard to mass jump, but I feel like you've got to make the right decisions from here to not have mass drops.
Correct.
At the same time. So you've got to, if you don't have trades, it's a good time of year to sit on no trades and kind of ride it out for the rest of the year. But make sure you're making the right decisions right now for the run home, because if you pass on a guy who everyone else has who is absolutely killing it, then that's going to put you in a bad position leading into the end of the year. But round 20 is here. This is the last kind of big buy round. Three teams on the buy. We've got the Sharks, the Eels, and the Dragons. Very SuperCoach relevant teams, 1.5 of them. The Sharks are very relevant. Eels, there's Dylan Brown, there's a couple of little pods here and there, but none. Zach Lomax for the Dragons as well. A lot of people probably sold him by now anyway. So it's a bit of a tricky week, but it is still one of the last moving weeks that there is. But the big question is, with Origin around the corner, we're kind of speaking blindly about who do we want to get into our sides for the run home. So I think this week is the week to target the non-Origin guys, and then next week go hard on them, because there's a lot available at the moment.
yeah, I agree with what you said, but I guess it's smart to do trades, but I'm doing what I do best and doing the opposite. I'm pumping the trades that I have left just to get my team set up, because I believe if I don't jump on the certain plays that I want, they're going to cost me a lot more. And obviously I'll be patient on guys like Nathan Cleary and Angus Crichton, as they've got the potential to lose money. So I think at this point in the season, it's a bit of a juggling act at when to get the right guy, because if you're on low trades, you want to try and get that player for as less as you possibly can. So it's, you're running a business in some such and trying to cash manage these options. So obviously, like most super coaches, or I won't be jumping early on those two I just mentioned and praying. Obviously, Crichton's got to back up. I've got to bank on lowish scores from him and hope next week it's 50k cheaper. But I think setting up the team for the run home, using your trades is fine as long as you're building yourself extra numbers, and make sure you've done the estimations on who's on buys and who you're going to be short. Especially, we're on the eve of head-to-head finals. There's only 3 weeks to go, so if you're chasing for a top 4 or top 8, you got to go hard this week. You got to win. I think it'll be a must-win match for most.
For sure. I'm in the top 4 for most of my leagues. There is one league where I'm like 6th. So in that league, I feel like I'm chasing my tail a bit. But I think when you are in multiple leagues, you kind of prioritize the majority. Like, don't prioritize one, because you'll screw yourself for the others. You'll be regretting it if you don't make the finals for that one, and you've screwed yourself for all the other ones. So just play it smart with your head-to-head finals. And I think the week the head-to-head finals start, we'll have a big strategy chat, maybe even a couple of weeks before. But this week is the week to choose to speak about, firstly, the run home. Secondly, trades versus who we want. So that's what I was going to start on. Trades versus who do you want? So I have 7 trades left, and I want an abundance of people, so I've definitely got to skip one. I want Matt Burton, Jacob Carraz, I want Harry Grant. I want Angus Crichton. I want Nathan Cleary. That's 5 out of 7. That leaves me with 2 trades for the run home. I don't think that's the worst thing in the world, but at the same time, I still need to use another trade to nuff out Henry. So that leaves me with 1 trade and potentially, a Tommy Trbojevic or a James Tedesco if they go down to a Kalen Ponga later in the year. Needs to be on the cards, especially if Ponga fires, because late last year, I was in a similar position to what I am now, and Kalen Ponga ruined me. So if Kalen Ponga is in very similar form to at all close to what he was last year, then he's going to need to be on everyone's radar for the end of the year. What are your trades versus targets?
So I sit on 7 as well before trades this week. I did use 1 trade last week, and it was to go Henry to AFB, knowing that with all the options this week, I wanted to make sure I had the power of 2 trades if I needed them. Matty Burton, I think, is a must. I think, I need to start chopping the dead wood for the run home, which is like Galvin, Brown. So, I need Matt Burton. That's 1. I did AFB last week because I looked at it and go, Liam Henry's got to come out of my side, and I need front row coverage for Terrell May. So I made that last week. But with the 7 left, Matt Burton 1. Number 2, I need a hooker. I'm not really worried about getting rid of Coruscant now we hear the news of 1 to 2, which I'm sure we'll get into, but I'll be using a hooker trade either way to either turn Lussick into someone who we'll mention soon or to fix that up. So that's a second trade. I need Crichton and I need Cleary. That's 4. That gives me 3 left. Luckily, I got 200k, so I'll have an avenue to turn someone like Cardi to Crichton or Dylan Brown to Cleary next week. That's why I want to wait a week and see how both of them go. Make sure Cleary comes back fit because I can't afford to bring in an injured man. I can't afford for them to go down, and I want to get them for the right price because all of a sudden, if someone like Crichton or Cleary get a 40 or a 50, I might have a bit of time on my hands. So that leaves me with 3. I do think, depending on if I need to burn that 1 trade to get the other guy, I will need to also... I've got Paps and Tedesco. I've got a bit of a fullback breakdown to discuss later, but I'm thinking I definitely am going to want Ponga for after his Penrith game. He's got Broncos by Penrith. I think he's a must for then, and in the meantime, after Storm play the Roosters, they have Dragons and Eels. So right as he finishes those 2 good matchups while Ponga's on shit matchups, hoping Ponga can drop down in a straight switch from Paps to Ponga. All the fullbacks have the 5 main fullbacks have nice runs home. It's just kind of, I did a bit of math and looked at when to segue. So I do have a reserve trade ready to go, Paps to Ponga, because I think out of all the fullbacks, I think apart from Tedesco, Ponga can hurt you the most if he's in his form.
For sure. I think Tedesco is definitely one of the fullbacks that can hurt you, and a lot of people have locked him in. If you think you're anti-potting him, I get why you don't want to spend the money on it this time of year, but if you've got the trade to do it, you may as well do it, because if you're already in a spot where it hasn't hurt you yet, then Tedesco plays a couple of teams later in the year who it's going to hurt you. And I really think that versing these teams who are pretty much done for the season. So for the likes of the West Tigers and Parramatta Eels, they're done for the season. They're going to get some scores put on them. And it's just because at this time of year, we see it every year. We saw with the Bulldogs and the Tigers last year, when everything was done, Manly absolutely dominated them the last 2 weeks. We saw Cooler get 188, Cooler get 125 against the Bulldogs and the Tigers. It's going to happen this year with the Parramatta Eels and the Parramatta Eels and the Tigers this year. There's going to be like another team or two. I think maybe the Warriors are leaning towards that at the moment. Tohu Harris has gone in for surgery today on his wrist, and maybe that was a decision just based on we're not making finals this year. Maybe they could have held it out. I'm not sure what the thought process is there.
I don't think it'd be that. Surely not, because they do have a mathematical chance. Can't give up.
They do. Let me have a look at the reports, but it says Tohu Harris has been ruled out for the season with a wrist injury. So he's had this wrist injury for ages, so it seems odd that he's gone for surgery now. Maybe this is them pulling up stumps, in my opinion. Andrew Webster's a smart dude.
He's smart, but I think that he'd look at it. Is it worth having him there? Not at 100%. No. Does he believe in the guy that he can get to fill in that position? Yes, they got a pretty decent forward pack. So Just with the three that you mentioned, Warriors draw home is pretty decent, and so is the Tigers. Eels is absolutely crap. I think Eels could get the wooden spoon. I said it on the Sunday wrap-up. So I think with those other two, I don't think they'll be a smashing each week. I do see them every now and then. They'll just want to gain a bit of confidence, and Benji will just be looking at for the Tigers stepping well into next year. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do jag a couple of wins. So I don't think it's panic station for them. But going back to the Eels, I'm trying to find every way to get rid of my Eels. I just don't have any confidence in them. I've been, holding hope and they just keep disappointing me. So they have a decent side. And you think with Moses, they might improve, but I just don't have any faith in them at the moment. So don't really want to hold too many of them for the run home.
I agree. And there will be teams like this towards run home. Raiders are probably too high up. It's not going to happen yet, but it will happen maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks out at most. So keep an eye out for that, and I think we'll try and keep on top of the ladder just to make sure and see if there's a matchup we can target that we think might be juicy. But let's go over the team list just very quickly. Obviously, this is the first big team list in a while. There's been a lot of watches that we've been watching for. Jamal Fogarty is back for the Canberra Raiders, which means Ethan Strange will play the left side. I'm absolutely devastated. I sold Ethan Strange for Tommy Turbo last week, and I thought Ethan Strange was going to be a nice hold, but you got to sell these guys eventually, and I just feel like Ethan Strange is going to have a big game this game. Zach Hosking is back on the extended for the Warriors. Tane Tuapiki at fullback. Dallin keeps his wing spot. Roger Tuivasa-Sheck on the sting. Wade Egan in a hooker. Fanua Blake and Barnett up the front. Dylan Walker plays at lock for Tohu Harris. For the Rabbitohs versus the Tigers game, Jai Gray keeps his fullback spot. White and Walker in the halves. Colin Matangi in at lock. Cameron Murray on the edge. And for the Tigers, Luke Lualihi is back on the wing. Charlie Staines on the wing as well. Talon De Silva comes in at hooker for Api Coruscant, but Api Coruscant is on the extended. So for owners there, if you don't have a backup hooker, it's probably just worth holding. And, if he gets a call up, that's great. If not, free loot, right?
Yeah, depending on your numbers, I think so. Unless you're sick of having no second hooker, then I think there is an option this week, which is what I'm going to be doing. But yeah, the fact that it's a minor, and I do like Tigers run home, I just think if you don't have a backup, then you might consider trading, because in the head-to-head finals, round 26, Tigers have a bye. So realistically, if you get into a head-to-head final, you're going to need to make a trade. So realistically, I think if you have Coruscant and someone like Lussick, you're forced into at least making one hooker trade for the rest of the year. So, but I still think he's a decent hold for those matchups to get you into the grand final.
Just a quick thing on the hooker thing. You were talking about like backup hooker. If you got Lussick, if you're one of them people in the rare situation that has 2 gun hookers, probably don't do anything about it now, but striving for 2 gun hookers, I don't think is the play this year. No. Every year it's kind of the play, because it's like you don't really want enough there or anything, but I think it's kind of fine.
If you had Api Coruscant as your second gun hooker, I'd be looking at moving him on to someone like Starling this week. Yeah. Pocket that 300k, and there's your solution to, a Cleary
really.
and
nothing,
Cardi.
But you're still building depth. Oh, you're not building depth.
You're not nothing. You're building it, and obviously hoping that, like, realistically, if he can stay in the position he's starting in, he's undervalued and can match what some of these higher price guys are. If Coruscant come out today at 5 rounds, I was very tempted, like out for 5. I was very tempted to go Starling as my main starting hooker, which is absolutely crazy. But then I go, don't need any more money for the year. I get that, it gives me like, I have 700 or I have like 600k. There's Cleary, there's Crichton, and then I'll have money for reserve for one more. So definitely high risk, high reward play. But yeah, I would look, if Coruscant was a second hooker, I'd look at making some money there, because it's getting hard to get a guy that can be a decent number and make money. There's not many of them.
I just want to touch on that. If you didn't watch the Sunday wrap-up on Sunday, we did talk about Starling. I don't think we're going to touch on him for the rest of the episode, but 53 points in tackles his last outing, and he's playing massive minutes. So have a look into Tom Starling if you are struggling for a second hooker. And let's say you got a Brendan Hands or a Joey Lussick or someone who...
Danny Levi, even if you still somehow have him.
If you've got someone on your bench kind of like that, seriously have a look at Tom Starling, because I think he's a great option. I'll just get up his minutes that he's played in the last couple of weeks now.
While you do that, Sabs, the main thing too, I think with Fogarty back, the Raiders could, start winning some games again. They got a decent draw. If the Raiders keep piling together wins, I think they're going to stick with that hooker combo. I know you might go, what if he reverts back to the bench? Or obviously Levi's been dropped and the minutes have been rotated because of the poor defensive read. So I know Wolford's also there. That could always come in. But realistically, Starling's the one that's majority stayed in the side at least, even if it's off the bench. So I guess that's why you probably couldn't take the risk as your main hooker, but definitely to go someone to get rid of like garbage like Lussick and have someone there that can churn out decent points. I'll be making that trade this week.
Yeah, so Starling over the last 2 weeks, 68 minutes, 76 minutes for 52 points and 80 points. That 80 points in the last matchup, that was 53 points in tackles. I think it was like 8 points in runs. He got a try assist and a line break assist. Everything is there. And eye test, he is a gun hooker. We've always known if he gets the minutes, then he's an absolute gun purchase. But moving on to the team list, Knights versus the Broncos. Kalen Ponga is named at fullback. Hopefully he can get a bit of a price drop. I guess this is also depending on Origin. We will, I will be doing like a Q&A podcast on the Thursday. So hopefully we get more of an idea if there's any injuries out of Origin. So keep an eye out for that. Dane Gagai and Bradman Best back in the centres. Greg Marju named. Good to see that. He was on one leg on the weekend. Obviously just a massive cork or something. Will Price keeps his spot. But Tyson Gamble is on the extended, so keep an eye out for that. Kai Pearce-Paul keeps his edge spot, and Dylan Lucas to the bench. So for me, it's probably something I'm going to have to address this week, and we'll talk about that in the trade segment. All the Brisbane Stars are not named, but they are named on the extended as well as Adam Reynolds. I think they kind of need a win, so I kind of, if they pull up okay, I expect them, majority of them to play, depending on...
Yeah, I can't see them being rested. They have to win this one. They're in a slump. They just lost to the Dragons. They're on a real form slump. They have to win this week. And I think Knights are in the same position where they've got to win this week. So a lot of these matchups now, it's a must-win. So that's going to be a good clash. And I think I don't see too many teams resting their stars unless, at this stage, they're all named in the reserves. It's Penrith and Melbourne, I think, the only two that I'm confident will rest as they're in a little bit... They have more breathing room.
Yeah. Storm play the Roosters on Saturday night, 7:30. Pappenhausen named. Jack Howarth keeps his spot at centre. Remus Smith is actually on the extended and has been playing New South Wales Cup. So that's something interesting to notice. If you do need someone at that price to fill in a hole, to fill in a void for you, maybe he's the guy in a second row. Nick Meaney returns. Tyron Wishart retains his spot. Harry Grant is named, and so is the likes of Elias Cato and Sean Bloor. For the Roosters, Tedesco in, and all the Origin stars are there, but we'll wait and see how that pans out. But Terrell May, named start. He's someone who we probably earmarked as a sell after this round, probably. But I think with the suspension of Jared Weir-Hargraves, you can probably hold him and play him most weeks until that suspension has been lifted.
Yeah, 100%. It's great news and good hold, definitely, for the ones that have. And just back to the Storm, interesting, Garlic hasn't been named at all. I'm not sure if he's injured or whatever happened. So there's realistically, they don't have that backup hooker there because Garlic's been going that well. Like, I'm not sure if it's an injury or a suspension, but the fact he's not even there and there's not really a notable hooker there, kind of tells you that unless Harry Grant gets injured in Origin, he's probably going to be backing up, which is crazy.
There is one thing I can see happening. Tyron Wishart has been gun, and
they're not going to take him out of halfback.
Maybe they put him at hooker and Nick Meaney plays at 5'8", because in the past they haven't had the luxury. Nick Meaney's either been injured or Nick Meaney was injured the last time this happened, so I don't know what happens there, to be honest. But yeah, for the Roosters, interesting. Jerome Hughes looks like a hold for the rest of the season. We will have a deep dive on halfbacks very shortly. Penrith play the Dolphins, and the big one is the Origin stars are rested, and Luke Garner is back.
Yeah, 100%. Him and our man Nathan Cleary.
Nathan Cleary's back. We'll speak about him shortly, but 180 break even. He's the second most traded in player this week. Can you do it considering what happened last time?
No way, unless you've got a crap load of trades and you really want to make a big move this week. But I just don't see.
I don't see it as
I don't
big
see where it
move,
works
though.
out. Like, well, if he comes and say he does go bananas and goes close to that break even, then all of a sudden everyone else is there having to pay $800K while you've got on and jagged a big score. It's the only way it becomes a big move is if he goes 150 plus, doesn't lose as much, and you get that as your captain. Then I think that's a big move in this round. But I see the risks are way too high in this one. He got injured first game back. If Penrith, say, are doing pretty comfortably, he's going to have an early shower for sure at some point. And who's the 14's a halfback. So,
Who, Trent Talau?
yeah, he's a halfback.
Right.
So the fact that he's Penrith have been carrying a half if it's not Laurie on there. And I just can't see... Yeah, I can't say unless... Yeah, I reckon they're not going to really name their stars, but I don't think you can go Nathan Cleary. It's absolutely crazy. I said it before. We're very few on trades, and you want to be getting all these guns at the absolute right price. If he does come out and go nuts, at least we're not going to have to pay any more than him unless he wants to break another record. But
And I get the fact that getting him in early is probably, like, if you're limited on trade, you may as well do it now. But I just think after seeing what happened last time, he scored 50 against the Cowboys. You saw him, like, go off kind of... Like, he was tight for sure when he came off against the Cowboys. He got injured the next week. I think he was playing the Dogs, was he?
yeah, and he's played 3 or 4 games all year. So,
Yeah.
like, he hasn't had much actual match fitness.
And this injury is, like, a concern for him, like, the longevity of him. It's turning into the amount of hamstring injuries he has. Tommy Turbo areas, like, just...
Latrell.
Tommy Turbo, Latrell. Obviously, I think Cleary prepares himself to make sure he's right for the right time of year. I don't think he will have any other injuries leading into the back end of the season, given that there's something bad.
You'd
But
like to hope not, but I guess at the same time too, he does kick. Like, the difference with him compared to the other two is obviously his kicking game is vital, and obviously it's loading up his hamstring, so it's just going to be. But I guess Luai's been able to step up, and they'll have a game plan where they still utilise Luai to do a lot of the kicking, so it's going to be interesting.
personally, if I see the Penrith players resting, the Origin stars resting this game,
Yeah.
I think the objective here is to get through the game. And then next week is going to be the big week. I don't care what his break even is next week. I think he's a good buy next week. But this week, I just want to see how he goes.
If he pumps out a 40 or a 50, then I don't think he is a straight switch in next week. I know
It just depends, because if you're limited on trades and you can get him in now and it doesn't affect any future trades.
But yeah, I get what you mean. But like, as I said, I want to get him for the right price. Like, break even of 50. The 51 will drop out of his rolling average, and say he gets another 40 or 50. He's sitting with that.
Yeah.
It's like, obviously I'd only do that if it's because if I can only get one at Cleary or Crichton, I probably prefer to jump to Crichton if I've got someone else here with a huge break even and still trying to get his confidence back. So it just mainly it's not only what he scores, it's just how he actually looks.
Yeah.
Is he still playing the
for
way
sure.
that Cleary's playing? How's his kicking going? Does he might not goal kick this weekend? Like, that'll be the big test to see how ready he actually is. So there's a lot of, like, either way, yeah, he's got to come in as soon as possible. And I know he plays the Dragons next week, but Dragons haven't been just a push in the puck, and they beat Penrith last time with all their troops out. But yeah, I guess the key here is just the right time to get Cleary and try and get him for as cheap as you can.
We'll play it week by week, but we're saying no on this week. For 4 p.m. on Sunday, Manly play the Titans at 4 Pines Park. Trbojevic keeps his fullback spot, and Lehigh Hopewadi keeps his wing spot. Carl Lawton keeps his spot on the edge back row. Jack Trbojevic at lock. Ben Trbojevic is back on the bench, and for the Titans, Keanu Keeney at fullback. AJ Brimson on the extended again. Jaden Campbell keeps his spot, and Mo Fodawaker comes back into the side. So Pahulu goes to the bench. Chris Randall at lock, potential hooker replacement if anybody's looking. And the last game is the 6:15 Sunday game. One of the hardest carries there is for the weekend. For the Cowboys, they haven't named any of their Origin stars, but we know historically they bring them in last minute. But we'll see.
They didn't last game.
They didn't last game. We'll
It was
see
on
how they
Sunday
are.
too.
They're sitting in a pretty good spot, so looks good for them. And for the Bulldogs, Jacob Carraz and Blake Wilson named on the wing, which means Jacob Carraz on the left. We'll talk about that. Matt Burton keeps his spot. Sam Hughes is starting with the news that Max King is out, so that's very good news. And we look at that bench. We've got Bailey Hayward, Puaso Farmasili, who doesn't play massive minutes, Curtis Morin, and Lippy Hoopoy.
And Preston's back too, right? I don't think he played the last week.
No, he is back. And and that means that Jamin Salmon is out. He's out for a while, so that's pretty good. That is team list done and dusted for the week. Obviously, we'll refer back to that if we need to, but the big talking point this week is fullbacks for the run home. You've got a deep dive. I've also got a deep dive. I've got draws. I've got the 3 fullbacks I'm looking at.
Yeah, I'll cover all of that.
Who wants to start?
Yeah, well, I'll probably cover. Yeah, I'm going to cover a good chunk. So yeah, fullback frenzy. So we got the 5 fullbacks. I'm just labeling as 5 because I think they're the 5 that you need to have 2 of for the run home, no matter what your makeup is. So first, Tedesco, 962k, break even at 59, the most owned out of these 5 guys. Run home of Melbourne, Manly, Dolphins, Bye, Para, Titans, Raiders, Souths. Out of all those games, so you got 8 games left. He's only got 3 home games left. But I think, obviously in the head-to-head finals, he misses your quarterfinal, but then has Para, Titans, and then Canberra. So I think there is no way you can go without Tedesco. He'll be way too scary, even with his price. Flip over to Turbo. He'll be a popular one this week. 730k with a break-even of 82. He's got Titans, Roosters, Bye, Raiders, Warriors, Tigers, Dogs, and Sharks. He's got 3 home games left too. I think sometimes it's important to note because especially guys like him, they just go to another level at their home ground. They're available for all the head-to-head finals. I think Turbo is a great purchase, but if you got eyes on Ponga, I don't know if it's a short-term play. It just depends whether or not you need the fullback. Paps, 650k, break-even of 100. Obviously, he's got a 39 in his rolling average that will go out, but he does have a really tough matchup with the Roosters. He then has Eels, St. George, which is really friendly to help you get to head-to-head finals with South, Penrith, Dolphins, Cowboys, Broncos. He's got 3 home games left. He's the cheapest out of all the 5 I've got on this list. I don't think I'd be bringing him in the fact that he's playing the Roosters this week. It's more so to owners that have him. I wouldn't be jumping off him to someone like Tom. He's the perfect switch to Ponga, who is my next one, who's got Broncos, Bye, Penrith, break even of 180, and he's got a 14 in his rolling average that will go out this week. So it obviously depends on what he scores. But then, with him hitting the Bye and then Penrith, you could have a Ponga in the 600,000s. So I think and that Penrith game is at Penrith. So basically, you hold on to Paps for Para and Dragons, and then in round 23, when Ponga will play the Tigers, you need a bridge to him. You've got to realise that Ponga's playing the Tigers in round 24, I think I got, or 23. I think it's for the quarterfinal, I think it is. So, 23. You've got to get on him for 23. I think he could make or break that week. Obviously, if he's fit. And then, Edwards, 891k. He's got I didn't write his break even down. He's got 169. But Penrith's done him pretty good, and they have no buys. It's Dolphins, St. George, Newcastle, Para, Melbourne, Raiders, Souths, and Titans. But compared to all the other fullbacks, they have 5 games at home left. They've got the most games at home left. They've got a big chunk. And
you know that because you're a member and you're already planning your weekend around it.
Yeah, 100%. Whenever I have something on, I check it. I haven't been for a while just because of all the rain and that. But be going to the very first Penrith versus Dolphins there, and obviously counting down the games that we got left there till they rebuild it as such. So, realistically, based on home games left and draw, you'd probably favour Edwards, but I guess it's going to be hard to pick someone like it. It depends what you're after, and if you're playing head to head, I think someone like Ponga will be the hardest to leave out. Like, I just don't see myself not trying to get a Ponga Tedesco, because obviously while you have Tedesco on the bye for 23, you have Ponga. And then after that, both their draws from 24, 25, and 26 are pretty good. So the main reason we wanted to deep dive into the fullbacks is that there is such a big selection, and all these guys have pretty decent draws. And it's I don't think you can afford the trades to keep hopping on and off. You've got to commit to 2. The only scenario I like is that Paps to Ponga for Paps owners because it works.
Yeah, I was even looking, because Ponga's draw is so juicy from round 23, I was looking at Turbo's draw from then too, because Turbo plays the Roosters next week, and then he has a bye, so ideally
that's why I wouldn't bring him in this week if you want Ponga.
Yeah, exactly. If you were getting rid of Turbo, you're getting rid of Turbo the week that Ponga comes back and plays Penrith, then plays the Tigers the week after. But Turbo's playing Canberra the week after.
Warriors, Tigers.
He loves playing Canberra. And I think you've got to really target these fullbacks who, as I said earlier in the podcast, you've got to target these fullbacks who have more games against these bottom sides than not. So there's... I'm looking at this graph courtesy of Aman Talks NRL Supercoach. Shout out to him. Go over to his Instagram. You'll see this graph. And there's a lot of greens. There's a lot of reds. And the only person with one red, that's Dylan Edwards, and because he plays Melbourne. But for the rest of them, the draw is pretty good. He doesn't have many big greens, though. So the one with the most greens is Latrell, who actually isn't available at the moment. So Latrell would have been the perfect hold at this time of year, because he plays the West Tigers twice. He plays Newcastle, and then he's got a pretty tough draw the last 2 weeks. Ponga has 3 greens in the last 5 weeks, which is perfect for the run home. So I think Ponga's the one to get. And then there's also Tedesco from round 24, head-to-head finals. He's the perfect pickup. Turbo, he plays a lot of the bottom sides through that middle period as well. So they're all pretty even. I think you've just got to commit to one and just let it ride, to be honest. Just from looking at it.
With making your trades in fullback, you just have to commit and realise that, I'm just going to get him, then I'm going to go to him. Then I don't think you can do that. And you don't know what carnage is going to come around the corner, because it always comes at this time of year. So if you are looking at making a fullback trade this week, then go to yourself, are you going to commit to this person? Because if you're bringing in Tom, although his matchup is great, and I think he's the possible best captain for this round, you got to commit to him. You've got to realise you've got Roosters and then a bye.
Yeah.
And then, because after that, his draw is so good for those finals that I think you're going to need him. So it's kind of why I looked back at that last week and I stayed off it, because I was like, I think Paps at 8% has potential while I have him. And obviously Ponga's around that corner. So if I go to I know I definitely want Ponga. So you can't afford to bridge him. And even if I had like 10 trades left, I think I still wouldn't want to, because some of the trades you have to sell them and then get them back immediately after the week. That's a waste. But I guess to the ones that have buyers, I think it's Tom, Ponga, and Tedesco. All those three who we would probably deem 3 the best. They all have buyers left. Where those other 2 blokes don't have buyers left. Technically, if they can maintain a high average, they might outscore what the others do for the rest of the season. So I think the ones that don't have a buy, also pretty tempting, especially if you're holding someone like Edwards now, which I don't think most would. But if you were holding someone like Edwards, same with Paps, no more buys for the rest of the year. I just guess the problem with most of these fullbacks is Ponga, Edwards, or Ponga, Paps, and Turbo, high injury concerns too. So that's another thing to note, and why I like waiting for Ponga to around 23, because it gives him time to work into fitness and you can judge how he's looking before you make that trade.
And it also gives you time to look to whether, like, if Tommy's back to 2021 form at all,
you jump.
Then you can go to him as well. So it kind of doesn't handcuff you to one, because I've made the decision to go to Turbo now. I can't reverse on that now. Like, I've got to
So
ride.
does that mean Sabs is going to repeat last year's fortune and be without Ponga that absolutely destroyed his season?
We'll see.
You didn't think about it last week, did you? Did you think about it before bringing Tom in?
I thought about it.
I know you did. You did good with him. You needed him last week, but time will tell.
I think he's got a good draw, and I think because I got him last week. I've got points that I wouldn't have got if I waited for Ponga. So if I look back on it at the end of the year and it was a good trade, it might not feel like it was a great trade at certain points, but it still could, if that makes sense.
It's the best part about the fullback conundrum is we can only have 2, so there's going to be different combos out there, and that's what I kind of like. That's why if you weren't a Tedesco owner, I know he'd be too scary not to have, but realistically, I'd probably try and stack like a Tom and Ponga for the run home, especially, around that 23 buy. If you didn't have him, if you have to get Cleary, you don't have the money, then you probably can't afford to do that. And some of these other guys are at really good prices, and all their break-evens are reasonably high. So you don't have to make an immediate decision now. Yep. Unless realistically, I think if you did want Turbo, I'd commit now for the Titans. Because realistically, if you wait and say, I'm going to wait till after their bye and go for the Raiders, I think then you'll be going for Ponga. But if you did wait, then I guess you get to make a decision around then at who you want more because you get a couple more
Yeah,
games.
you can't wait on Turbo for sure, and I think that's the appeal of him. Getting him this week for the price he's at is pretty good.
But Titans aren't as easy of a matchup as what they are. Like, they're not.
Yeah,
There's still points in them. Their defense
100%.
isn't crazy. But
Yeah, he's not. The Titans are much better than we have given the credit for over the last couple of weeks, but 4 Pines Park versus the Titans, his record speaks for itself against the Titans. All right, we're going to go... Oh, someone's ringing me. That's inconvenient. We're going to go over to halfbacks because halfbacks is a big talking point as well. But before we do that, head over to picklebet.com.au. Use the code TURBO when signing up. They're doing a bunch of Origin specials for tomorrow. One special I like, Mikey, is the Dragons special. So Ben Hunt and Zach Lomax to score a try. $11. You might like this special here. It's the Panther special. So any of Brian To'o, Dylan Edwards, Jerome Luai, or Liam Martin, $1.30.
it's not bad, but I actually, as a Panthers fan, I don't think they were heavily scoring tries in the last one. I think if any of them are going to score a try, it'd be Luai, but I think it'll be on the other side. I think I'd be more invested in. I think it'll be Crichton's turn instead of
I think it's going to be Crichton's turn as well.
Yeah,
And
he's
do we have
good
anything with Crichton here? We do have one with Crichton here. I saw it before. I think it's the centre wing stack up, and that's Crichton or Hammer to score. I can't find. Where's this?
Anytime I like, I know it's probably not a special, but I'm kind of like anytime Valentine Holmes, Hammer, and Best, and I think the odds is only 19, but you chuck 25 on that, you see a return of around 400. I just saw a stat. I know the Cast Patrol put a thing out where they show a stat with Hammer scored in every single Origin game he's played. Holmes on the wing has, or a winger's like something like Holmes has scored in the final
first try for his last 4 games at Suncorp, but that didn't include him playing on the wing,
which is, I think, even increases his odds.
even
And then
better,
Bradman Best, I think that centre spot in third game, it was something to do with like just stats there, and I kind of like pairing the 3 of them in a multi because I don't think it's as high risk as some of the other plays, but I'll have Crichton featured in one too. I like his odds.
Yeah, well, there's a centre wing showdown, the centre showdown, any of Hammer or Stephen Crichton to score the first try, $6.80. I think that's a nice one. I think Stephen Crichton's probably likely to score a first try as well. So
I just don't think this one will be as high scoring as what the last one was, but that's what makes it harder.
But someone's got to score the first try, right?
Yeah, you'd like to think so.
All right, let's move over to the fullbacks. Obviously, Cleary is the second most traded in player this week, so we've got to talk about it. Nathan Cleary, he has the best run of any halfback is actually the Tigers. And do you really want Aiden Caesar in your side? You probably don't. The second best run is the Sharks. So, Jesus, Braden Trindle, maybe we should look into him. 500K with a negative 31 break even. He's a massive shout as well. For the Bulldogs, I just want to see where the Bulldogs are at. They are third. So Matt Burton and Toby Sexton, I think we're looking at Matt Burton more so. Their draw is insane. They've got the Cowboys, then they've got the Broncos, Canberra, St. George, Dolphins, New Zealand Warriors, Manly, and then the Cowboys again. Matt Burton, 530K, 42 break even. What are your thoughts on Matt Burton?
Yeah, I'm bringing him in this week. The price is right. I want to get rid of Galvin, and I want to make sure the guys I'm getting rid of to a guy with a good run home. And Matt Burton's got a very good and juicy round 23 to 26. Well, as I said, I'm like you. I'm in a lot of top 4s, a lot of high-end cashies as well. So I've already locked up the first spot in 2 of them already. That's how far ahead I am in some of them. So I guess I'm just trying to strengthen my side. And I think for that price we saw previously this year, he was at 750K. We've both owned him. I know he requires a bit of attacking stats to do it, but I think the Dogs, they've looked really good against some tough opponents. And with some easier matchups, I think if they do blow out some of the games, he's the kind of guy that will have a really high score. So the price is too attractive. And if you're holding a guy like Cody Walker, and for now, one of them's in your halfback, it gives you movement. If you're getting rid of a Dylan Brown, you're still able to have a bit of movement.
I'll tell you what gives me movement. Banking money off doing that trade. So
yeah, especially off someone like Galvin that cost 200K at the start.
Yeah.
And you're now doing a straight swap to Burton, who was previously at 750.
Yeah, and you make like 50K, 40K off it. So I think that's a great trade. I think Burton should be way higher on the most traded in this week. I'm getting him on my side this week as well. Before we go on someone I do want to talk about, Dylan Brown. Back to Aman Talks NRL Supercoach. He put a graph up on his, and Dylan Brown is all red except the last 2 weeks. And then, is it too late? He's got Melbourne, New Zealand, Penrith, Sydney Roosters, Broncos, and then St. George and the Tigers. I know Dylan Brown is the type of guy who can score well against all of them, but are you really wanting 50s to 60s with the chance of missing out on 120?
It's a tough one. It's crazy to think right now the highest total point halfback is Dylan Brown, but he's played Jerome Hughes is number 2 and only 45 behind him, and he's played 4 more games than Hughes. So his average is 64. Based on averages, he's actually the 9th most total point halfback, on average. So Jerome Hughes is number 1. So it's tough because Dylan Brown has been pretty average and still posting okay scores to play for now. 5.99, break even a 97. As I said, I'll be pulling the trigger on someone to get Crichton or Cleary. I don't know who yet. I have to wait till this week. But realistically, it's looking like getting rid of him next week is probably something you got to do. And I guess if you have to hold, hoping he doesn't lose value. But from here, if he keeps going subpar, then his value is definitely going to drop. And they've got a tough matchup against the Melbourne, after their bye, who they do like to upset. So. But I just don't have any faith in him.
Yeah, and if you're selling him for someone like Burton, who you can make money off, he's I feel like Burton's minimum going to score what I'm expecting Dylan Brown to score for the rest of the year. So I think that's just in itself. I honestly prefer Braden Trindle over Matt Burton, over Dylan Brown at the moment. So that's where I'm at.
I don't think anyone would be selling. I guess, could you do Trindle trade? I don't know if I could do.
It's a nice pod for the run home.
It is, but it's also risky because of the floor that he has.
True.
And although the Sharks were great last week, they did play a very bad Tigers, and I think some of those other ones that you'd say are easy matchups, they'll have more fight than what you think. So I'm worried what happens in a close, low-scoring game.
They don't play the Tigers or Parramatta again as well. One person I like, 600K on the dot. He's got a very small break-even of 15. Has the Gold Coast Titans, the Roosters, a bye, then Canberra, New Zealand, Tigers, Bulldogs, DCE. I think with Nico Hines out for the year, this other halfback spot is open for you to use.
He's the end game specialist, and realistically, if Cleary come back and got injured, I'd be running Cherry Evans as my run home second halfback. The amount of times that he can just really help you for that run home, and if Tom stays fit, man, they're going to be charging strong. They can even push for a top 4 spot. So I really like DCE. It's just more so, if you got Jerome Hughes or someone else there. If you really needed 2 more halfbacks, then I would be going DC and Cleary at this point. But that's what worries me with going someone like him. It's like, well, then if I go DC here, I can't go Cleary. So it's just hard. And with the low break even this week, you want him for this week, it makes it hard, right?
Yeah. Thoughts on, DCE 600K, Hughes 820K. I think DCE's draw is a bit better than Hughes, but Hughes is just in a side that will capitalise on these performances. So Hughes has the Roosters. He has Parramatta next week, so it's you don't want to not have him for that. But then he has St. George and then the Rabbitohs, good matchups. But then he has Penrith and the Dolphins and then the Cowboys and the Broncos, which he might rest in that last round if they've got the minor premiership locked up, depending on how Penrith go.
That round 24 game will be huge to whether or not he gets rested. But I guess Jerome Hughes versus DCE, the important thing to note is Hughes doesn't have a bye for the run home. And they do only have a total of 3 home games left, which isn't a lot.
If that allows you not to nuff a position, would you do it? Because it banks 220K.
It's interesting. I just think with low trades, I don't think you can afford to, because that's, even though you're gaining that money, you are losing someone who is absolutely killing it, especially without Munster. But that is 220K you bank, and then if you still end up with Cleary and DC, I like it. But there's no way I couldn't do it. As you said, Para, Dragons, Bunnies, that's a good run. And even Cowboys, Broncos, Dolphins might be tough, but there's still points in them if they play. So he's been doing way too good for you to even consider getting rid of him. So
I agree, but these players go on a run, and then the run has to stop eventually. So maybe is it thinking outside the box by doing that? We know Manly historically late in the year, DC's been that guy, and I don't know. It's just something to think about, to be honest. But in my opinion, you got to do it this week because Hughes plays the Roosters, DC plays he plays the Titans, but DC's backing up from Origin. It's a tricky week to do it.
I think what makes it tough too is you only get him for 2 and then he goes on his bye, which makes me not like it, because then if you're doing that to get rid of Hughes' matchup against Roosters, then DCE plays the Roosters next week. So realistically, no, I don't like
and then
doing
Hughes
that
plays
trade.
Parramatta next week. Yeah, but you bank 200K, but I think in the short term, it's not a good trade, is it?
It's not. There's no way you can trade him. I was meant to trade Hughes for a number last week, and I didn't do it because even I could have got Jaden Campbell. I didn't do it because I was like, I've got to hold him. This guy's going too good. And we mentioned it. There were guys that you didn't jump on like Ponga. If you didn't get on him for a run, you suffered. And he's a guy right now who I think can continue the run. This Roosters-Melbourne game, I think, is a hard one for the round. I've got a total, I think, like 7 players going to be playing in that one, or 6, and it's like I don't think it's going to be high scoring, but I think a lot of super coaches have a lot from this, so that's going to, I think maybe it could, depending on how that goes, 100%. So it's also tough because a lot of the most popular captain options have been from that game, so it might see other people take risks. So if for some reason, the Roosters end up piling it on the Storm, then it's going to favour the people that stick strong with a Teddy C. So it's going to be interesting. I think this week, this round, that game will control the round, how we all go. Just because we're all heavily invested in these guys. And after this week, they both split onto some really nice runs.
And I guess that brings us on to the next halfback, Sammy Walker. They've got a really good draw. They do have bye in round 23, but they got after Melbourne, they've got Manly, Dolphins, the bye, then Parramatta, Gold Coast, Canberra, Souths. If you've got Sammy Walker, you're very happy at the moment with the Nico trade, because I think that was going to be a headache eventually. If you've got Sam Walker and Jerome Hughes, what are you doing?
It's tough. I guess it's a week to week.
Are you just waiting to see Cleary? Like, don't lock in Cleary yet.
Wait and have a look, but be realistic. If Cleary does fall, they go on these runs and they get themselves ready to win another premiership, and it's going to be hard not to have him. So you'd look at this, and I'd have a look. How many Roosters do I currently have? Most would have or want one of Young or Manu. You'd have Terrell May, Teddy. You look, if you don't have Angus Crichton, you look to get him. That's already 4 Roosters. Say you had a Connor Watson, there's another one. And if you have Sam Walker, that puts you at like 5 or something Roosters. That's going to leave you really light for the quarterfinals where you could be in an eliminator. So realistically, you might be looking at going, crap, I've got a lot of Roosters. I still like that run. I will bridge Sam Walker to Cleary. Out of those two, I would be more pro to sell Sam Walker purely on the basis that if you had too many Roosters. If you were sitting with like 1 or 2 Roosters, then I think that's fine. But if you've got 2 gun halfbacks, I'd be looking more at Sam Walker over here. And I know he's been great, but it's tough. Halfback's becoming a bit of a headache. I guess it's good that Nico Hines went down because it would make the problem even harder. It's becoming similar to fullback with just the amount of options and having to make critical decisions in the position.
For sure. All right, let's go on to trades. But I just want to ask you quickly before we do go on to trades. Payne Haas. I think he was someone who a couple of weeks ago I was like, I'm definitely getting him in my side. But the more we look at these other high upside players, it's really worth getting him in now that Terrell May is probably going to have extended minutes, and you can probably plug him in, and Josh Curran as well.
It depends what you make up. If you've got Terrell May and say like a AFB or Tappan A, then realistically, if you've got Sam Hughes or someone else pretty dud, you can't bank on Sam Hughes being a saviour now. You realistically would need a third backup front rower to cover you in that round 23, unless you're just happy to sack and have a lower score with Sam Hughes, depending on your head-to-head. So it might make people look okay. If you got the money, I definitely think Payne Haas is still an option. But the reason I was like, I need to still make money to do some of these other trades. How can I afford going to him? That's why I got AFB last week, because Henry to him was like 25, 30K, where Haas, I would need to find extra 100K. So like I said at the start of the pod, managing my cash, working out who I need, but what I need to do to get that cash, and kind of just making business smart decisions, and just based on prices why I went AFB. So I guess if you had Terrell May and then you've got like a finery from the Tigers, then you probably don't need to go to someone like Haas. But if you are really lacking a gun in that position, then I can see why you would. I guess the thing is with most of these gun front rowers, most of them have a buy left. AFB, Haas has a buy left, so does Terrell May. I think Tapane is one of the only main ones that doesn't now. So I think that's important to look at too, especially with these base stat front rows when they have a bye that's 60 less that they're scoring. So I think on average, you might find that Tapane might average higher than the rest of them, which might seem crazy saying that. But if none of those front rowers score tries, I think the fact that he's got that one extra game in hand, he can average more now than some of these other guys.
That's true, total points wise.
Yeah.
All right, trades for the week. I'll kick it off. I did say I was getting Matt Burton, but looking at team list now, Dylan Lucas is on the bench and he has 113 break even.
He's got to go.
So I think I've got to sell him. He was good while he lasted. He did me well last week, scored 60 points playing centre. So I love that. I'm nuffing out Liam Henry. I'm nuffing out Liam.
Who are you going Dylan Lucas to? And say,
Graz.
Even though he's on the I still think he's a great option either way, but with his high break even, do you think he's a must? You don't see anyone else you're tempted on?
But I see Lucas losing more money than him. And the reason I was going either Galvin or Cody Walker to Matt Burton this week. Probably Galvin, but Galvin's break even's 96. He's going to lose a bit of cash, and Burton might gain a bit of cash, but maybe I go Burton next week. Or maybe Burton's someone I've just got to let go. And I really like him as a purchase. If he's still at a good price next week and I like the look of him, I'll get him in. He plays the Broncos next week, which isn't as appealing, but I'll still kind of do it. Him and Cleary will come in next week if that's the case.
I don't mind that matchup next week for him, but it just depends on how he kind of scores this week to how much of
If he scores too much this week, then it gets to the point where I'm just like, is it worth getting him in? So hopefully if he scores 60, I'd be okay with that.
Yeah,
but
so
it also
I guess,
depends if Galvin scores 20 points as well.
Yeah, I guess are you selling, you're not making a half trade.
I'm going to sell Dylan Brown to Nathan Cleary, I reckon.
Yeah, and you're holding Galvin at the moment.
Well, I was selling Galvin to Burton this week, but because Lucas is named on the bench, I'd rather just go Kraz. Yeah,
it's a tough spot for you to be in because I think nothing. Like I'm trying to avoid nothing. It's just too.
Liam Henry's fine.
He is, but then if your other backup front row is Sam Hughes, what if he doesn't get the minutes that we're hoping and he's a 30-point? That means in the quarterfinal.
I'm going to take that risk.
You know what I mean? Like I think that's why I kind of set up and made sure instead of making that money, I wanted a third option. I'm just with the low trades. I think the only way I'm going to survive it if carnage happens is to have backup in each position. Yeah. But I guess that's just a bit of a different tack that I don't normally do. I normally just prioritize high points and burn the trades. This time I'm ensuring depth.
Yeah.
But yeah, solid trades. I guess mine I've already both mentioned. If you've been paying attention. I'll be going holding Api Coruscant, and I will be trading Lussick, finally get rid of that friggin' bum, to Tom Starling. I've got a backup hooker now. Hopefully, if Starling stays there, I think it's going to be such a really good trade. And I love his matchup this week, so I'm happy with that. And my other trade is, Matt Burton, Galvin. I've got Galvin and Brown, both in my 5/8, massive high break-evens. I prefer Galvin to go, just so I don't lose any cash. And then that way, if I do go to Cleary next week, I know if I want Cleary over Crichton next week, I can 100% do it from Brown. So that's why I'm choosing. I've got 18 for this week. How many do you have for this week?
I've got way more than I need. Valentine Holmes is out. So.
I'm happy having less, to be honest. If I got super desperate for numbers, I would have to switch and I would sell Dylan Brown and go to Galvin if for some reason. But I don't have any Origin plays in my side at the minute. So I don't really need to worry about resting too much. I've been tactically trying to get rid of most of them. Depending on what happens with Matt Burton.
Yep.
He's the only Origin player I could have.
Cool. All right. And the tipping point. Timmy got 2 out of 4 last week, and I got 2 out of 4. So that just kind of null and voids it. We made every one you got right an extra point. So I don't know if you're playing for Timmy now or. Yeah, Timmy's not here, if for anyone that didn't notice.
Yeah, I'm not Timmy. But
He's not Timmy. You can step in place of Timmy. We've got Tom Trebojevic, Nathan Cleary, and Matt Burton, who are part of the tipping point. Do you want to set the line?
You can set the line. That's my first one. So
let's go. We'll go Nathan Cleary first. I'll set the line at 65. Less or more?
I'm going to go less. I think you'll score less than 65. I think it's going to be a shock.
Then
I think we just,
The game is you've got to set the new line.
Can't I just take that line, or is that what you want to take, 65?
No, because if you say less and I'm okay to go more,
Yeah, I want to take him. I think I'll go more. I think 70. I think he's going to score 70.
That's not the game though.
See, I haven't been paying attention, is it? But like, if I think he's going to score more or less, I think he's going to score.
No. So I set the line at 65. So you say I'm going to go higher than 65. I'll go 70, and then
All right. Well, then I'll do that. I'll go higher. I think he's going to get 70.
You score higher than 70.
Yeah.
So I'll go lower then.
Lower than 70. Okay, done.
So,
Yeah.
all right.
There we go. I get it.
Tom Trbojevic. I'll set the line at 80.
I think I'll go 90.
Higher than 90. I'll go higher than 95.
You can have it. I'll go under.
Okay, sweet. And then Matt Burton.
That's a tough one.
Set the line at 55.
Okay, 55. I think he'll go higher than 70.
I'll go lower just because I want him to, because I'm going to miss him this week.
Yeah. Okay, have on the faith.
All right, who's your captain?
I haven't decided. I have it on Tedesco. I don't know how much balls I have because obviously I just want to stay steady where I am. But if I do want to go for a jump up, I am considering Matt Burton. I am also considering Ruben Garrick. I don't. Obviously, both my fullbacks are Storm and Roosters, so I don't know. I think it's hard this week. I'm looking at Burton or Garrick, but I don't know if I have the balls. If I want to go safe, I go Tedesco, and my VC will be Cody Walker, who I'm hoping the Bunnies can actually towel up the Tigers while they're hurting, especially no Coruscant, no leadership. And to be honest, in a round like this one, with only 18, I'll take an 85 plus as a loop. So I'm hoping Cody can do that.
I like the Cody one. After a loss last week, they'll be bouncing back this week, hoping to continue their run into the finals. That's it for the podcast, lads. Thanks for tuning in. Tune into our NRL episode. It's an Origin preview. Mikey is jumping in for Timmy this week. And
First one.
Got a few fun things planned. We've got a special guest as well. So thank you for tuning in. Good luck with Origin. Good luck with your SuperCoach. And
catch us on the Sunday wrap-up.
Yeah.
Be a bit later this week.